The giant crystal dome of the Galactic Council chambers glowed with bright light as hundreds of alien beings filled the massive space. The air buzzed with strange sounds as different species talked in their own languages. The dome was so big that small ships could fly inside it and still have room to spare. Ancient pillars reached up to the curved ceiling where holographic displays showed star maps from across the galaxy. Ambassador Krill of the Xanthari Empire stood at the center speaking. Platform, his blue skin was turning darker with each word he spoke. His four arms moved wildly as he tried to make the other council members understand the danger he had discovered. Krill was old, even for his long-lived species, and his experience made him one of the most respected voices in the council, but today nobody wanted to listen to what he had to say. Behind him, a massive holographic display showed a small blue and green planet spinning slowly in the darkness of space. The planet looked peaceful and harmless from this distance, with white clouds swirling over green continents and blue oceans. Most of the council members had never paid attention to this tiny world before. It was located in what they called the Outer Rim territories, far away from the important civilizations that controlled galactic politics. Krill had been studying this planet called Earth for many cycles now. His research team had been monitoring radio signals and electromagnetic emissions coming from the third planet of a small yellow star. The more they learned about the creatures living there, the more worried Krill became. These humans, as they called themselves, were unlike any species the galaxy had ever encountered. For the past hour, Krill had been explaining his findings to the assembled delegates. His voice echoed through the chamber as he described the strange behavior patterns he had observed. The humans fought terrible wars against their own kind using weapons that could destroy entire cities, yet the same species would risk their lives to save a single animal trapped in a burning building. They poisoned their own air and water with industrial waste, but then spent enormous resources trying to protect small patches of wilderness. The contradictions never ended. Humans would hate each other for having different skin colors or believing in different gods, but then work together to help strangers during natural disasters. They created art so beautiful it could make other species weep, but they also made weapons designed to cause maximum suffering. They explored the deepest oceans and the highest mountains, driven by curiosity alone, even when there was no practical benefit to their discoveries. Commander Vex of the Gorlan Federation finally stood up to respond. His metal body gleamed under the chamber lights, and his red optical sensors focused on Krill with obvious annoyance. The Gorlans were a proud warrior race who had conquered dozens of star systems through superior military technology. They saw themselves as the galaxy's greatest fighters, and they did not like being told to fear some primitive species that had barely figured out how to leave their own planet. You speak of danger from creatures who still use chemical rockets to reach their own moon, Vex said in his mechanical voice that makes his words sound like grinding gears. The humans have no faster than light travel, no energy shields, no plasma weapons. My youngest soldiers carry weapons that could level their largest cities. These humans you fear so much are still throwing rocks at each other compared to our technology. The other council members began to murmur in agreement. Many of them came from species that had mastered interstellar travel thousands of years ago. They had energy weapons that could crack planets, artificial intelligence that could run entire star systems, and biotechnology that could extend life for millennia. The idea that they should worry about a species that still burned fossil fuels for energy seemed ridiculous to most of them. The Velcor representative floated forward in its transparent bubble filled with pink gas. The Velcors were ancient beings who had evolved beyond physical bodies and existed as pure energy contained in artificial shells. They communicated through color changes in their gaseous forms, and right now the pink color was shifting to orange, which meant amusement or contempt. The Xanthari grow cautious in their old age, the Velcor said through its translation device. These humans pose no more threat than any other developing species. We have standard procedures for bringing primitive worlds into galactic civilization. The process has worked successfully for over 10,000 years. Krill felt his heart beating faster as he realized he was losing the argument. He had spent years studying human behavior, and he knew something that the others could not understand. The humans were not just another primitive species. Waiting to be civilized, they were something new and dangerous, not because of their technology, but because of their nature. Listen to what I'm telling you, Krill pleaded with the assembled delegates. Yes, their technology is primitive, but that is not what makes them dangerous. It is how they think, how they react to problems, how they refuse to give up even when defeat seems certain. I have watched them fight wars where they were outnumbered 10-1 and somehow find ways to win through pure, stubborn determination. He activated another holographic display showing footage his spy drones had captured of human conflicts. The images showed human soldiers continuing to fight even when wounded, human scientists working around the clock to solve impossible problems, human leaders making speeches that inspired their people to attempt seemingly hopeless tasks. Look at their history, Krill continued. Every time they face extinction from disease, war, or natural disaster, they adapt and survive. They have survived ice ages, volcanic eruptions, plagues that killed most of their population, and wars that destroyed entire civilizations. Yet somehow they always come back stronger than before. The council chamber erupted in dismissive laughter. Many of the delegates had heard similar warnings before about other species that supposedly pose threats to galactic order. In every case, the advanced technology and superior organization of galactic civilization had easily absorbed these primitive cultures into the existing system. There was no reason to think the humans would be any different. Senator Quill of the Arcturus Republic stood up to address the chamber. Her crystalline body reflected the chamber lights as she spoke in her musical voice. The Arcturians were known for their logical thinking and careful analysis, which made them valuable mediators in council disputes. Ambassador Krill, your research is thorough as always, but I believe you may be overthinking this situation. The humans show typical patterns for a developing species. Experiencing rapid technological growth, their contradictory behaviors are normal for cultures. Transitioning from tribal societies to planetary civilization, we have seen similar patterns in hundreds of other species. The final vote was never really in doubt. The council members had made up their minds before Krill even began speaking. They classified humanity as a minor developing species suitable for standard first contact procedures. The responsibility for making contact was assigned to the Drachneri Empire, a reptilian race famous for their efficiency in dealing with primitive worlds. Captain Nexer of the Drachneri received his orders with satisfaction. His species had successfully brought over 300 worlds into galactic civilization using proven methods. The process was always the same: arrive with overwhelming force, demonstrate superior technology, demand surrender, and then help the new species adapt to galactic society. It usually took less than one planetary rotation for primitive species to understand their situation and accept galactic authority. As the council session ended and the delegates returned to their ships, Krill remained behind, staring at the holographic image of Earth. He had done everything he could to warn them, but now it was too late. The Drachneri fleet was already being assembled, and within days they would travel to the human homeworld to begin standard first contact procedures. What Krill knew but could not make the others understand was that there was nothing standard about humanity. Their greatest strength was not their technology or their military might, but something far more dangerous: their absolute refusal to accept that anything was impossible. When faced with superior force, most species calculated the odds and surrendered when defeat seemed certain. But humans seemed to become more determined when the odds were stacked against them. Ambassador Krill looked one final time at the peaceful blue planet spinning in the holographic display. Soon the Drachneri ships would darken its skies and the humans would face their first contact with galactic civilization. He could only hope that his warnings had been wrong and that this first meeting would proceed according to standard procedures, but deep in his heart he knew that nothing about humanity would ever be standard. The Drachneri fleet emerged from hyperspace above Earth like a storm of metal and fire. 50 massive warships appeared in the dark void around the small blue planet, each one bigger than any structure humans had ever built. The ships were black as night, with glowing red lines running along their hulls like veins of molten lava. Their arrival sent shockwaves through Earth's atmosphere, creating brilliant displays of light that could be seen from the surface. Captain Nexer stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching Earth slowly rotate beneath him. The planet looked so small and fragile from this height. He could see the lights of human cities scattered across the dark continents like tiny sparks. The Drachneri had done this same thing hundreds of times before arriving at primitive worlds with overwhelming displays of force. Most species surrendered within hours once they understood how completely outmatched they were. The captain activated the communication systems that would broadcast his message to every electronic device on the planet below. His deep voice would reach every human ear at the same time in their own primitive languages. The translation systems had already decoded most human communication methods, making this part of the conquest routine and simple. Primitive species of Earth. Nexer began, his voice booming across television screens, radio speakers, and computer monitors around the world. You are now under the authority of the Galactic Council. Your world has been selected for integration into galactic civilization. You will surrender all military forces and governmental structures within one rotation of your planet. Resistance will be met with overwhelming force on Earth. The response was immediate, but nothing like what the Drachneri expected. In some places, panic spread through the streets as people fled their homes and headed for underground shelters. Military bases around the world went to high alert and emergency meetings began in government buildings, but in many other places something completely unexpected happened. In Seoul, a young engineer named Taeho was working late in his laboratory when the alien message interrupted his research. Instead of running away or hiding under his desk, he stared at the massive alien ships visible through his window with growing excitement. His mind raced with possibilities as he studied the strange hull designs and the way the ships seemed to hover without any visible propulsion systems. Look at the energy readings, Minsu. Taeho called to his colleague who was monitoring detection equipment. The power output from those ships is incredible. If we could understand how their engines work, we could revolutionize energy production on Earth. The gravitational fields they are generating suggest technology that could solve our transportation problems forever. In Bazan, marine biologist Hyjin was equally fascinated, but for different reasons. She had spent her career studying life in Earth's oceans, but now she was looking at evidence of life that had evolved under completely different conditions. The brief glimpses of the alien beings shown in their broadcasts revealed biological adaptations that challenged everything she thought she knew about life. Their respiratory systems must have evolved in different atmospheric conditions. She explained excitedly to her research team. The bone structure I can see suggests they developed under different gravitational forces than Earth. The scientific implications are staggering. We could learn things about biology that would advance our understanding by centuries. Meanwhile, in military headquarters around the world, a very different kind of excitement was building. General Park of the South Korean Defense Force studied the tactical displays showing the positions of alien ships above Earth. His decades of military experience told him that any conventional defense would be hopeless against such advanced technology, but Park had not become a general by accepting hopeless situations. They want to see what humans are capable of, he told his staff officers. They think we will surrender because their ships are bigger than ours. They do not understand that humans have been fighting against impossible odds for thousands of years. Size and technology are not the only factors that determine victory. The human response that flooded back to the Drachneri ships was unlike anything in their military database. Instead of surrender negotiations or even defiant threats, they received thousands of different communications from all over the planet. Some were formal diplomatic messages from government officials offering to discuss peaceful cooperation and cultural exchange agreements. Other messages were personal challenges to single combat sent by individual humans who wanted to test their skills against alien warriors. Many more were simply questions. Endless streams of questions about alien biology, technology, culture, philosophy, and science. The volume of communications was so massive that it overloaded the Drachneri communication systems within the first few hours. Captain Nexer stared at the flood of incoming messages with growing confusion. In all his centuries of military service, he had never encountered anything like this. Most species either surrendered immediately when faced with superior force or organized military resistance that could be easily crushed. The humans seemed to be treating the invasion as some kind of educational opportunity. Some of the messages were from human children asking if the aliens had families and pets. Other communications came from artists offering to share human music and paintings with their new alien. Neighbor scientists sent detailed proposals for joint research projects that could benefit both species' religious leaders. Extended invitations for theological discussions about the nature of life in the universe. The deadline for surrender came and went without a single formal capitulation from any human government. Several nations had sent diplomatic messages suggesting negotiations, but none had actually surrendered their weapons or governmental authority. Instead, many had sent formal invitations for face-to-face meetings to discuss what they called mutually beneficial relationships. Captain Nexer decided that a demonstration of force was needed to make the humans understand their situation. He selected an uninhabited island in the Pacific Ocean far from any human settlements and ordered his fleet to destroy it. The combined firepower of 20 Drachneri warships turned the island into vapor and ash, creating an explosion visible from orbit that sent shockwaves around the planet. Surely now the humans would understand the futility of resistance and accept galactic authority. The destruction of the island was a clear message that cooperation was their only option for survival. Nexer expected immediate surrender messages to flood his communication systems within hours of the demonstration. Instead, the human response became even more chaotic and confusing. Scientists immediately began analyzing the energy signatures from the explosion, trying to understand the principles behind Drachneri weapon technology. Social media networks exploded with discussions about alien military capabilities and possible defense strategies. Some humans did begin building underground shelters and stockpiling supplies for a long conflict, but others started organizing what they called welcome committees to greet the alien visitors when they landed. Many began learning basic words in what they thought might be alien languages based on the intercepted communications. The most baffling response came from human military forces, who began approaching the alien ships not with weapons but with white flags and requests for face-to-face meetings. Fighter jets flew close to Drachneri vessels, broadcasting messages of greeting and curiosity rather than threats. Some human pilots even performed aerial acrobatics, as if trying to entertain their alien observers. Captain Nexer found himself in a situation that no Drachneri military manual had prepared him for. The humans refused to surrender properly, but they also were not organizing conventional military resistance. Instead, they seemed to be treating the entire invasion as an opportunity for cultural exchange and scientific advancement. Their chaotic response was impossible to predict or counter using standard military tactics. The young Drachneri officers on his bridge were equally confused by the human behavior. Lieutenant Vash approached his captain with a puzzled expression on his scaled features. So some of the human communications are offering to teach us about their food preparation techniques. Others are asking if we would like to participate in what they call sporting events. Captain Nexer realized that the simple conquest he had expected was turning into something much more complicated. The humans were not following any known pattern of behavior for a species facing overwhelming force. Instead of fear or anger, they seemed to be responding with curiosity and hospitality mixed with stubborn determination to maintain their independence. As reports came in from across his fleet, Nexer learned that similar confusing interactions were happening around every Drachneri ship. The humans were responding to superior alien technology not with submission or terror, but with questions, scientific analysis, and offers of friendship. It was a response pattern that had never been recorded in galactic military history. The captain stared down at the blue planet below, wondering what kind of species could face certain conquest and respond by trying to make friends with their conquerors. The Drachneri had expected a quick and routine operation, but the humans were turning first contact into something unprecedented and unpredictable. Something told Nexer that this mission was going to be much more complicated than anyone had imagined. What happened next completely destroyed every alien expectation about how conquered species should behave. The humans did not unite under a single world government as most civilizations did when facing superior force. Instead, they did what humans had always done best. They improvised, adapted, and turned their greatest weakness into their most powerful weapon in hidden underground laboratories around the world. Human scientists worked day and night to understand alien technology. Dr. Yuna led a team of researchers in a secret facility beneath Seoul, using fragments recovered from the destroyed Pacific Island and detailed analysis of alien broadcast signals. Their approach was dangerous and completely unscientific by galactic standards. But it was producing results faster than anyone had thought possible. We do not need to understand everything about their technology, she explained to her exhausted team as they worked through another sleepless night. We just need to understand enough to disrupt their systems. Their shields work on frequency patterns that we can interfere with if we can generate the right kind of electromagnetic pulse in. Another facility weapons specialist, Kyung-soo, was leading a very different kind of research project. His team was not trying to build better weapons to fight the aliens. Instead, they were developing what he called disruption technology designed to confuse and disable alien systems without necessarily destroying them. Their weapons are designed to fight other advanced civilizations. He told his engineers they expect energy shields and plasma cannons and gravitational weapons. But what if we attack them with something they have never encountered before? What if we use their own advanced technology against them in ways they never considered possible? Meanwhile, on the cultural front, humans began what they cheerfully called aggressive friendship, led by military linguists. So young teams of communication specialists had cracked enough alien language codes to begin broadcasting directly to the alien ships, but instead of sending threats or demands, they flooded alien communication channels with human music, art, literature, and entertainment. The Draknari found their military networks clogged with everything from ancient classical symphonies to modern pop songs, from traditional folk art to abstract paintings, from epic poems to simple children's stories. The volume of cultural material was overwhelming, but more importantly, it was having an unexpected effect on the younger alien crew members. For the first time in their highly regulated lives, these young Draknari were experiencing art that had not been approved by government committees or designed to promote specific political messages. Human creativity was wild and chaotic and emotional in ways that alien culture had forgotten how to be. Some of the younger aliens found themselves secretly listening to human music during their off-duty hours. The real surprise came when humans began their counterattack, and it was unlike any military action in galactic history. Small groups of humans in modified aircraft began approaching the alien ships, not with weapons or threats, but with questions, gifts, and formal requests for cultural exchange meetings. Fighter pilot Dong Hyan led the first successful contact mission with an alien vessel. His small squadron approached a Draknari cruiser, broadcasting messages of peaceful intent and carrying what they called diplomatic gifts, homemade food, human art, and scientific research data. Instead of attacking the human aircraft, the confused alien crew allowed them to dock with their ship. "We come in peace," Dong Hyan announced as he stepped aboard the alien vessel, carrying a box of Korean traditional cookies and a collection of human scientific journals. "We would like to learn about your culture and share ours with you. These are gifts from the people of Earth." The alien crew had no idea how to respond to this situation. Their military training had prepared them for battle or surrender negotiations, but not for friendly visitors bearing gifts. The humans were genuinely curious about everything they saw, asking detailed questions about ship design, alien biology, and the technology that powered their vessels. "Your artificial gravity system is fascinating," marine engineer Jinwoo told his alien host while taking careful notes. "Have you considered using similar technology for construction projects? On planetary surfaces, the applications for building cities in space could be revolutionary within days." Similar diplomatic boarding parties had made contact with dozens of alien ships. Each group brought different gifts and asked different questions. Some brought musical instruments and gave impromptu concerts for alien crews. Others brought scientific equipment and proposed joint research experiments. Many simply brought food and stories and an infectious human enthusiasm for meeting new friends. The effect on alien morale was dramatic. Young Draknari who had been bored with routine military service suddenly found themselves looking forward to human visits as the most interesting part of their day. The humans treated them not as conquering enemies, but as fascinating new friends to learn from and teach. Captain Nexer watched his carefully planned military operation fall apart in ways that no training had prepared him for. His crew was becoming divided, with younger members increasingly Sympathetic to the humans, his communication systems were completely overwhelmed with human cultural broadcasts that somehow made his officers more interested in art and music than military discipline. Most frustrating of all, the humans absolutely refused to fight a proper war. They would not mass their forces for conventional battles or attempt to destroy alien ships with weapons. They seemed more interested in making friends with their supposed conquerors than in driving them away from Earth. Sir Lieutenant Vash reported to his captain with obvious confusion in his voice. Some of the human visitors are requesting extended tours of our ship. Others are asking if they can bring their families to meet us tomorrow. One group wants to organize what they call a friendship festival. On the surface, the situation became even more impossible when civilian scientist Yunji made a breakthrough discovery that changed everything. Working with international teams of researchers, she realized that alien power systems were based on principles that humans had theorized but never successfully implemented. More importantly, she understood that human creativity gave them a massive advantage in problem-solving. Their technology is more advanced than ours, she explained to world leaders in an emergency video conference, but it follows predictable logical patterns. They build everything according to established rules and procedures. They cannot adapt to chaos and unpredictability the way we can. This gives us opportunities they will never see coming. This insight led to what humans called controlled chaos warfare. Instead of trying to match alien technology directly, human forces began using completely unpredictable strategies that no alien military manual could counter. Art students created camouflage patterns that confused alien sensors by using principles from abstract painting. Musicians developed sonic weapons based on techniques from electronic music composition. Even comedians joined the effort, creating psychological warfare programs that left alien intelligence officers completely baffled. Human humor was so strange and illogical to alien minds that intercepted comedy broadcasts were filed as potential secret military communications. But the most effective human weapon was simple friendship. Young aliens who had experienced human hospitality began questioning the entire purpose of their mission. When maintenance worker Haewon shared traditional family recipes with an alien engineering crew, it started conversations about home, family, and the meaning of conquest that no military training had prepared them for. Why are we fighting people who want to share their food with us? Asked a young Draknari soldier named Crix to his commanding officer. It was a question that had no good answer in any alien military handbook. The humans were treating potential enemies as potential friends, and this simple approach was more disruptive to alien military discipline than any weapon could have been. As news of the strange human resistance spread through galactic communication networks, other species began paying attention. The war that was supposed to be a routine conquest was turning into something unprecedented in galactic history. A primitive species was not just surviving contact with advanced civilization, they were changing the aliens who had come to conquer them. Ambassador Krill sent urgent messages to the Zenthari government from his monitoring station. The humans are not just defending themselves, he reported, they are converting their attackers to their way of thinking. This is exactly the kind of dangerous unpredictability I warned the Council about back on the Draknari flagship. Captain Nexor found himself in an impossible position. He could not complete his conquest because the humans would not surrender properly, but he could not withdraw without losing face before the entire galaxy. Worse, his own crew was becoming infected with human ideas about creativity, individual expression, and the value of questioning authority. The humans had found a way to fight that no alien military force knew how to counter. They were winning not through superior weapons or tactics, but through the simple revolutionary idea that enemies could become friends if you treated them with curiosity, respect, and kindness. It was a concept that threatened to undermine the entire foundation of galactic civilization. Captain Nexor stood in his command center staring at reports that made no sense according to everything he had learned about warfare and conquest. His carefully planned military operation was falling apart, but not in any way that Draknari tactical manuals could explain. The humans were not fighting back in any conventional sense, yet somehow they were winning. The daily briefings from his ship commanders painted a picture of complete chaos. Human boarding parties continued to arrive at alien Vessels with gifts and questions, young Draknari crew members were requesting what they called cultural exchange duties instead of normal military assignments. Some of his officers had begun learning human languages and customs during their off. Arasa reported communications officers rack with barely concealed frustration. The humans have sent us 17,000 new messages since yesterday. Most are invitations to what they call friendship gatherings, others contain detailed scientific proposals for joint research projects. A few are asking if we would like to try something called pizza. The captain realized that his crew was more interested in human culture than in completing their military mission. Discipline was breaking down, not through rebellion or mutiny, but through something far more dangerous: curiosity and friendship. The humans were systematically dismantling Draknari military structure simply by treating enemy soldiers as potential friends. The situation became critical when civilian scientist Yunji transmitted her breakthrough discovery to every human research facility on Earth. Her analysis of alien technology revealed that advanced galactic civilizations had traded innovation for predictability. Their systems were more powerful than human technology, but they were also rigid and inflexible. They have been using the same basic technological principles for thousands of years, she explained in her global broadcast to human scientists and military leaders. Their weapons, shields, and engines are all based on established patterns that never change. They cannot improvise or adapt the way we do. This predictability is their greatest weakness. Her revelation sparked a revolution in human resistance strategy. Instead of trying to match alien technology directly, human forces began exploiting the psychological and tactical advantages of controlled chaos. Every human response became deliberately unpredictable, making it impossible for alien commanders to anticipate or counter human actions. Art students at universities around the world began creating camouflage systems that confused alien sensors by using principles from abstract painting and optical illusions. Musicians worked with military engineers to develop sonic weapons based on techniques from experimental music composition. The combinations were so strange that alien computers could not classify them as either military threats or cultural communications. The most effective psychological warfare came from an unexpected source. Human comedians, professional entertainers, created programs specifically designed to confuse alien intelligence analysts. Human humor was so illogical and culturally specific that alien computers trying to decode comedy broadcasts often crashed from processing errors. Stand-up comedian Minho became famous throughout the galaxy when his routine about the differences between alien and human dating customs caused a complete breakdown in Draknari communication networks. The aliens spent weeks trying to determine if his jokes contained secret military codes before finally concluding that humans found their own mating rituals amusing. But the real transformation was happening on a personal level between individual humans and aliens. Young Draknari, who had spent their entire lives following orders and regulations, suddenly found themselves experiencing concepts like personal choice, creative expression, and individual friendship. When maintenance worker one invited a group of alien engineers to share a traditional Korean family dinner, it created a cultural crisis that spread throughout the Draknari fleet. The aliens had never experienced hospitality offered without political or military purpose. The simple act of sharing food and stories with strangers challenged everything they had been taught about how different species should interact. Why do the humans treat us as friends when we came here to conquer them? Asked young Draknari soldier Crix during what was supposed to be a routine military briefing. His question started a discussion that lasted for hours as alien officers tried to understand human motivations using logical frameworks that could not explain human behavior. The problem spread when human social worker Sojin began organizing what she called intercultural friendship programs. Groups of humans would visit alien ships, bringing children's artwork, homemade food, and simple gifts while asking personal questions about alien families and homeworlds. The aliens had no defense against genuine human curiosity and kindness. These friendship visits had an unexpected effect on alien crew members who had been away from home for years serving in military campaigns across the galaxy. For the first time, many of them began to question whether constant warfare and conquest were really necessary for galactic Civilization Engineering Officer Thak found himself looking forward to visits from human engineer B.O. Ram, who brought technical drawings and asked endless questions about alien propulsion systems. Their discussions about technology gradually expanded to include topics like art, music, and philosophy, subjects that had been banned from Draknari education. For centuries, the conversations were changing both species in ways that no one had anticipated. Humans were learning about advanced physics and galactic history, while aliens were discovering concepts like individual creativity, emotional expression, and personal freedom that their rigid societies had abandoned. Long ago, Captain Nexer realized that the problem was spreading beyond his fleet when he received emergency communications from Draknari. Command on the homeworld intelligence reports indicated that human cultural broadcasts were reaching alien populations throughout the galaxy. Young beings on dozens of worlds were beginning to ask dangerous questions about why their societies suppressed individual expression and creative thinking. The humans were not conquering through military force, they were conquering through ideas, the very qualities that made them seem primitive to galactic civilization. Their creativity, their chaos, their emotional intensity were proving to be revolutionary concepts that challenged the foundations of alien society. Emergency meetings of ship commanders produced no solutions to the human problem. Traditional military tactics were useless against an enemy that refused to fight conventionally. The humans could not be defeated because they would not engage in proper warfare. Instead, they kept trying to make friends with their supposed conquerors. Lieutenant Vash approached his captain with a request that would have been unthinkable weeks earlier. Sir, some of the human visitors have invited me to attend what they call a cultural festival on the planet's surface. They want to show me human art and music and introduce me to their families. I request permission to accept their invitation. Similar requests were flooding in from across the fleet. Young alien officers wanted to experience human culture firsthand. Many had begun creating their own art inspired by human examples. Others were writing what humans called poetry using alien languages to express personal emotions that had no place in traditional Draknari society. The situation reached a crisis point when human diplomat Young Seek transmitted a formal message to Captain Nexer that demonstrated complete misunderstanding of the military situation, or perhaps perfect understanding of human psychology. Dear Captain Nexer, the message began, "We know you came here with orders to conquer our world, but we would like to offer you an alternative. We invite you and your crew to become the first official ambassadors between Earth and the Galactic Council. We believe that friendship and cooperation will benefit everyone much more than conquest and submission." The message went on to offer alien crew members opportunities to study at human universities, participate in scientific research projects, and experience Earth culture as honored guests rather than conquering enemies. It was an offer that made no sense according to galactic political traditions, but it was exactly the kind of impossible human gesture that was proving impossible to resist. Captain Nexer found himself facing a choice that no Draknari military manual had prepared him for. He could continue trying to complete an impossible conquest of a species that refused to be conquered properly, or he could accept the human offer of friendship and try to explain to Galactic Command how his invasion fleet had been converted into a cultural exchange program. As he looked around his bridge at alien officers who were more interested in human art than military discipline, Nexer realized that the humans had already won. The conquest was over, but somehow the conquerors had become the conquered. The galaxy would never be the same. The situation exploded far beyond Earth when human social media specialist Nara achieved something that had never been attempted in galactic history. She managed to hack into the galaxy-wide communication network that connected every inhabited world in known space using techniques developed by human computer programmers who specialized in breaking impossible security systems. She gained access to communication channels that reached billions of alien beings. The hack was not designed to steal military secrets or plant computer viruses. Instead, Nara used the galactic network to broadcast human cultural content directly to alien populations across thousands of star systems. What she transmitted was a simple compilation of human daily life, art, music, scientific discoveries, and ordinary people doing extraordinary things. Aliens across the galaxy suddenly found their communication devices displaying images of human children playing in parks, human artists creating beautiful paintings, human scientists making breakthrough discoveries through pure curiosity and wonder, human families sharing meals, human musicians creating songs that expressed deep emotions, and human explorers pushing the boundaries of what was thought possible. The effect was immediate and more powerful than any military weapon could have been. On worlds where creativity had been suppressed for thousands of years, young aliens began asking questions that their governments could not answer. Why do the humans make art for personal satisfaction instead of political purpose? Why do they explore dangerous places just to satisfy curiosity? Why do they express individual emotions instead of collective harmony? The Velcor Collective existed as a unified group mind for over 10,000 years, experienced its first internal disagreement when young Velkers began requesting individual names and personal identities. Instead of numerical designations, the concept of individual personality was spreading through their society like a virus that their leaders could not contain. On the Gorlan homeworld, young aliens began organizing what they called creativity clubs, where they attempted to make art and music using human techniques. The Gorlan government tried to shut down these activities, but the movement had already spread too far to be controlled. Military officers found their own children asking why everything in their society had to serve a military purpose. Even the disciplined Xanthari Empire reported unprecedented problems with military discipline as soldiers began writing personal poetry and expressing individual thoughts that had no connection to official military doctrine. Some Xanthari officers requested transfers to what they called cultural research duties instead of traditional combat assignments. Emergency sessions of the Galactic Council devolved into chaos as representatives from hundreds of worlds reported similar problems. The rigid social structures that had maintained galactic peace and order for millennia were cracking under pressure from something the Council had never faced before: the revolutionary power of human ideas. They are not attacking us with weapons, declared a panicked delegate from the Rigel system. They are attacking us with concepts. Our young people are beginning to think that individual expression is more important than social harmony. This threatens the foundation of our entire civilization. The Council tried to implement communication blockades to prevent further human broadcasts from reaching alien populations, but it was too late. The ideas had already spread too far, and the damage was irreversible. Young aliens who had tasted creative freedom were not willing to return to lives of rigid conformity. Ambassador Krill watched the emergency council sessions with a mixture of satisfaction and terror. His warnings about human danger had been completely ignored, but now the entire galaxy was experiencing exactly what he had predicted. The humans were not conquering through military force, but through something far more dangerous: the power of revolutionary thinking. Back on Earth, engineer Bioram and her international team achieved another breakthrough that sent shockwaves through galactic civilization. By combining human intuitive thinking with captured alien technology, they developed faster than light communication systems that could transmit messages across the galaxy instantly. Their first message to the galactic community was not a threat or demand for surrender. It was a simple, friendly greeting that demonstrated complete human misunderstanding of proper diplomatic protocol, or perhaps perfect understanding of human nature. Hello, everyone. The message began in thousands of different alien languages. We are excited to finally meet all of you and learn about your amazing cultures. We have so many questions about how you live and what makes you happy. We would love to share what we know about art and science and music and food with anyone who is interested. The message continued with invitations to cultural exchange programs, offers to share human scientific research, and questions about whether aliens would be interested in trying human cooking. The tone was cheerful and optimistic, as if the humans genuinely believed that galactic civilization would welcome their friendship and participation. Also, the message concluded, does anyone want to try pizza? We think you might really like it. This simple message caused more disruption to galactic civilization than any military conquest in recorded history. For the first time in thousands of years, aliens began to imagine possibilities beyond their current existence. Young beings across hundreds of worlds, started dreaming about visiting Earth to experience human culture firsthand. The established power structures of galactic government faced their greatest crisis ever: rigid hierarchies that had controlled alien societies. For millennia found themselves challenged by young citizens who had been infected with human concepts like personal freedom, creative expression, and individual choice. On the Zenthari homeworld, Ambassador Krill received a personal message from his own daughter, who was participating in her planet's first art festival in 3,000 years. "Father," she wrote, "you warned the Council that humans were dangerous, but you never told us they would teach us how to dream again. The galaxy feels alive." For the first time in my lifetime, similar messages were flooding in from across galactic civilization. Children were asking their parents why their societies had abandoned art and music. Adults were questioning whether constant order and predictability were really better than the chaotic creativity they saw in human broadcasts. Scientists were proposing research projects based on human scientific methods that emphasized curiosity over practical applications. The Galactic Council found itself transformed from a governing body into something resembling a crisis management center. Instead of managing territories and resources, they spent their time trying to contain what they now called the human contamination. Every day brought new reports of alien societies experiencing unprecedented social changes. The most disturbing reports came from the Drachnary fleet still orbiting Earth. Captain Nexer transmitted regular updates that painted a picture of complete military breakdown. Half his crew had requested permanent assignment to Earth to study human culture. Many had begun relationships with human families and were learning human customs and languages. Sir Captain Nexer reported to Drachnary Command in his latest transmission, "I must inform you that traditional military discipline no longer exists aboard my ships. My crew members are more interested in human art than military training. Several have requested permission to bring their families from the homeworld to experience what they call the human way of life." The captain's reports described alien officers attending human universities, learning human languages, and even participating in human cultural celebrations. Many had begun creating their own art and music inspired by human examples. Some were writing personal journals expressing individual thoughts and emotions that had no place in traditional Drachnary military culture. The transformation was spreading beyond individual soldiers to affect entire alien societies. The rigid order that had characterized galactic civilization for thousands of years was being replaced by something messier but infinitely more vibrant. Human concepts of individual freedom, creative expression, and personal choice were taking root in alien minds that had never experienced such ideas. The Galactic Council faced an impossible decision. They could attempt total war against a species that refused to fight conventionally, or they could find some way to accommodate the revolutionary changes that human influence was causing throughout their civilization. Neither option offered any hope of returning to the predictable, ordered galaxy they desperately wanted to preserve. As reports continued to flood in from across known space, it became clear that the human effect could not be contained or reversed. The galaxy was changing in fundamental ways that no amount of military force could stop. A species that the Council had dismissed as primitive was reshaping galactic civilization simply by being authentically human. The age of rigid galactic order was ending, and something new and unpredictable was beginning to take its place. 6 months after first contact, the galaxy was completely unrecognizable from what it had been before. What started as a simple military conquest had become a revolution that changed the fundamental nature of galactic civilization. The transformation reached every corner of known space, affecting billions of beings across thousands of worlds. The Drachnary fleet still orbited Earth, but it no longer resembled a military force. Captain Nexer had officially redesignated his ships as cultural research vessels after more than half his crew requested permanent assignment to Earth. Many Drachnary officers now held dual citizenship and regularly traveled between their ships and human universities, where they studied subjects that had been banned in their society for centuries. The changes were not limited to military personnel. Across the galaxy, alien societies were experiencing unprecedented transformations that no government could control. The sterile efficiency that had characterized Galactic civilization for millennia was giving way to something chaotic and unpredictable, but infinitely more alive. On the Xanthari homeworld, Ambassador Krill watched his daughter, Zara, participate in the planet's first public art exhibition in 3,000 years. Her paintings combined traditional Xanthari techniques with human, artistic concepts, creating something entirely new that expressed individual emotions and personal experiences. Father, Zara told him as they walked through galleries filled with alien art inspired by human creativity. You spent so much time warning everyone about human danger, but you never mentioned that they would teach us how to feel again. Our world has been cold and empty for so long, I never realized what we had lost until the humans showed us what we could have. Similar transformations were happening throughout Xanthari society. Military academies had begun offering courses in creative expression. Scientific institutions were encouraging researchers to pursue projects based on curiosity rather than practical applications. Even government officials were learning to consider individual perspectives. Instead of following rigid bureaucratic procedures, the Gorlan Federation experienced equally dramatic changes. Their society had been built around military efficiency and mechanical precision for over 5,000 years. But exposure to human culture had inspired a revolution in Gorlan. Thinking that their leaders could not contain, Gorlan engineers began incorporating artistic principles into their designs, creating starships that were not only functionally superior but actually beautiful to observe. Their latest vessels curved gracefully through space with hull designs that resembled flowing water or dancing light patterns inspired by human art. Young Gorlans organized what they called creativity movements in cities across their homeworld. These gatherings combined traditional Gorlan engineering skills with human artistic concepts, producing sculptures and buildings and technological devices that served both practical and aesthetic purposes. Even the mysterious Velker collective underwent fundamental changes that challenged their most basic social structures for 10,000 years. The Velkers had existed as a unified group consciousness with no individual identities or personal experiences, but exposure to human individualism had sparked something unprecedented in their history. Individual Velkers began developing distinct personalities and personal interests. Some became fascinated with human poetry and began creating their own verse using color patterns and gas formations to express personal emotions. Others developed interests in human music and attempted to create similar effects using their gaseous forms. The most adventurous Velkers requested permission to visit Earth in person to experience human culture firsthand. These requests created a constitutional crisis in Velker society because their laws had never contemplated the possibility of individual Velkers acting independently from the collective consciousness. The Galactic Council building became the center of what resembled a permanent cultural festival rather than a government institution. Representatives from hundreds of worlds spent their time organizing artistic exchanges, scientific collaboration projects, and philosophical discussions instead of managing territories and military campaigns. The transformation reached its peak when human representatives finally arrived for formal first contact. Led by diplomat Young Ho and scientist Su Jin, the human delegation approached the galaxy not as conquerors or supplicants, but as enthusiastic neighbors eager to share and learn. We understand there may have been some confusion about our species. Young Ho addressed the assembled council with the characteristic human mixture of humor and sincerity. We would like to clear that up and discuss how we can all work together to make the galaxy a more interesting place for everyone. The human approach was typically chaotic and unpredictable. Instead of formal territorial negotiations or trade agreements, they brought gifts of human art and music, samples of various foods, and detailed proposals for scientific and cultural exchange programs. They seemed genuinely excited about the opportunity to learn from alien civilizations while sharing their own. Discovery scientist Su Jin presented research projects that combined human curiosity with alien technology in ways that had never been attempted. Her proposals included joint expeditions to explore unknown regions of space, collaborative studies of alien biology and physics, and cultural exchange programs that would allow beings from different worlds to live and study together. The irony was not lost on anyone present. The species that galactic civilization had dismissed as primitive had conquered not through superior weapons or advanced technology, but through the revolutionary power of being authentically human. Their chaos had become the galaxy's creativity, their emotional instability had sparked an artistic renaissance that reached every inhabited world. Captain Nexor, now serving as director of Human Alien, cultural relations often reflected on the failed conquest that had changed his life and his entire species. "We came to Earth to conquer them," he told groups of young aliens who visited to study human culture. "But they conquered us instead not.